Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else, this is John Paval with Access Arts Live's weekly roundup of orchestral and operatic productions for the week of September 22nd to September 29th, 2025. And boy, do we have a great lineup for you. This week we have count them, we have 7 live streams to tell you about coming from all points on the planet. We have orchestral and operatic performances this week from Finland to Brazil to Austria to Arizona. We have absolutely first-class, world-class opera in Vienna, free of charge. We have contemporary composers like Birtwistle and Grieg and Silva from diverse orchestras. And for those of you who are much more classically inclined, cello concertos by Shostakovich and Elgar. I mean, this is lovely stuff. So before I go any further, let me remind you, if you're watching this on Facebook, please like the video. If you're watching on any of our other platforms, please follow and or subscribe to Access Arts Live on YouTube, X, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, or LinkedIn, and we will continue to make sure you get more than 1,000 live links to live quality performances online this year, just like we did last year. Anyway, you can see some of the characters I'm going to be telling you about, people like Nicolas Alstate, Albin Gerhardt, the cellist, composers like Helen Grime, and sort of composer experimenters like Igor Silva and more. What can I say? So, and there you can see the main cast members of the opera TOSCA, which I will be telling you about before we're done today. So great stuff to talk about. Let's get on to talking about it right away. And I got to say, I hope I have all these dates and times right, that we're starting up again for the fall, and I'm rediscovering places like this symphony I'm going to be telling you about, the Tapiola Sinfonietta. But I'll be darned if I'm certain when some of these are live streaming and when some of them are not. I'm going partly on the basis of whether they live streamed last season, because very often you go to their websites, there's nothing to indicate whether a particular concert is being live streamed, and then you go to their YouTube channel and there's still nothing, and maybe you find out 24 hours beforehand. So with that reservation, let me remind you, you want to double check these dates and times when the date and time comes, and keep track. If you're following Access Arts Live, we do follow-up clips for individual performances, and we do weekend highlights when you have sometimes a lot of extra live streams piling on, which are not listed by their performing orchestras or opera houses even until the day of or the day before. Okay, so let's get started with this first one there, with this very soulful-looking Nicolas Alstate. Thursday, September 25th, Tapiola Sinfonietta, led by cellist Nicolas Alstate, performs Dream or Trauma, music by Purcell, Birtwistle, a Shostakovich cello sonata, Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, and a director and scenographer to physically set the stage for all this. I don't know what the director and stenographer are going to do, but the program notes say that they're gonna create the whole scene, and then the musicians are going to fill up the scene with this music. And this is not the only concert this week which is concerned with this sort of nether world between dreaming and wakefulness. And we'll get to the next one. The conductor, the Tapiola Sinfonietta, is a sort of a large-scale chamber orchestra without a formal conductor. You know, that they'll have a first violinist or a concertmaster. So Nicolas Alstate is taking on the task of being the cellist, being the conductor. He's also the cellist in the Elgar that they'll be playing. They have a narrator, Miiko Toiviainen. The director is Silja-Mari Heikenheimo, and the scenographer is Jonas Tikkanen. And those are Finnish names, so Even though I spent half my time in Sweden, that doesn't mean I can. Finnish is a whole other language. Anyway, they'll be doing specifically Henry Purcell's The Funeral March of Queen Mary. Then they'll do this piece by Harrison Birtwistle, who's a Sibelius Prize winner. It's called Cortege. And cortege is like a funeral cortege, it's like a procession. But I'm not sure every cortege has to be a funeral cortege. But ordinarily, that's it. Now, we're told the musicians themselves are also going to perform a mysterious ritual in front of the audience, but we're not told what it is. So this could be interesting. Then they'll do the Shostakovich's Concerto for Cello and Orchestra number 1 in E-flat major with Allstate on the cello. And then they'll do Schubert's Symphony number 8 in B minor, the unfinished symphony, with the program note. It's like, well, what would it have been if he had finished it? This is all about mysteries of different kinds. So anyway, it's a top orchestra, and Allstate is starting up with them as their artist in association for now and for 3 seasons, beginning this year. Last year, he was the artist in focus at the Munich Chamber Orchestra. And, in 24-25, he played with the Concertgebouw Orchestra, the Swedish Radio Orchestra, the Berlin Concerthaus Orchestra with Joanna Malwitz. He toured with the Australian Chamber Orchestra, and he conducted the Radio France Orchestra and the Munich Chamber Orchestra. So he's a comer. Check it out. I don't know if I told you the time for that. It's Thursday it's an early concert at 6:30 in the evening, Finnish time, which means it'll be 5:30 here in European time, 11:30 in the morning on the East Coast, 8:30 in the morning on the West Coast, and 1:30 at night down under in Australia. Now, just across the Baltic Sea from Helsinki, the Sinfony, the Tapiola Sinfonietta, it's in a suburb called Espoo, which is, they may not think it is, but it's, for outsiders like us, it's like a suburb, a related city to Helsinki. But across the waters, the Royal Stockholm Phil is inaugurating its first live stream of this season. So I want to tell you about that. And they're bringing in a very beloved composer, Juha-Pekka Sarasti. Whenever he live streams, the chat boxes go nuts. People love this guy's performance, And by the way, you subscribe to or follow Access Arts Live, you're going to see all these conductors from all over the world. There's no way you see all these top conductors if you're not following the live streams. They don't move around that much. Okay. To open its live stream season, Thursday, September 25th, the Royal Stockholm Phil offers you Tarkianen's Midnight Sun Variations, Tchaikovsky's Pathétique Symphony, number 6, and Elgar's Cello Concerto with top cellist Albin Gerhardt and top Finnish conductor Juha-Pekka Sarasti. As I said, people love Sarasti's conducting. And you see him there. He looks very distinguished too. Uti Tarkiainen is a Finnish composer. So that's how, and Juha-Pekka is Finnish. So there you see how you end up with, they're doing his Midnight Sun Variations. Then they'll do that's what they do first. Then they'll do Elgar's Cello Concerto with, that's Albin Gerhardt playing that. And then the Tchaikovsky Symphony number 6. Albin Gerhardt is very familiar to the Stockholm Phil. He's been playing with them since 2013, over a decade. He's done a solo Bach recital at the 92 NY. Don't know if that one was live streamed. They do a lot of live streaming. Last year, he was the curator of the Schumann Festival in Dusseldorf. He's recorded the complete Bach suites. He's recorded the Shostakovich cello concertos with the Cologne Symphony Orchestra and Juha-Pekka Sarasti conducting. So these guys know each other. They're top guys. It'll be a great concert. And that's and again, I forgot to tell you the times, but we put the times in the notes. But the times for the Stockholm concerts are always 7 in the evening European time, 1 in the afternoon on the East Coast, and 10 a.m. on the West Coast. We move on to Friday. Who do we have coming up on Friday, John? It'll be the third. This is where we get into Silva's work. This extremely contemporary. When I talk about places like Constellation Chicago and Composers Concordance, I talk about how they do now music. It's happening now. It didn't exist before. And whatever they did is never going to exist exactly that way again. That's something like this, okay? So I say, hold on to your ears. Friday, September 26th, Gulbenkian Orchestra is back playing Leonard Bernstein dances, John Adams's Short Ride in a Fast Machine, and a wild piece for jazz, trio, orchestra, and electronics by Igor C. Silva. That piece is called Soma. It's for 4 improvisers and electronics and an orchestra. So it doesn't exist until it exists. It's now music. It was commissioned by the Echo Network and was first performed at the Cologne Phil. Then they do the John Adams, and then they do symphonic dances from West Side Story by Leonard Bernstein. The conductor is Mariano Ciacciarini. The four what do you call them? I forget the word. The 4 improvisers. Sorry, are Igor C. Silva himself on electronics and synthesizers, and a guitarist, a double bass, and drums and electronics. So Silva, he's based in Amsterdam. He's working on a PhD in Brussels, where he also is teaching a live electronics course. And he's won a number of first prizes in various contemporary competitions, like the first International Electroacoustic and Intermedio Composition Competition in Germany, etc. Ciacciarini, he's Argentine born, but works a lot in Europe. He's from an Italian family. He spent 12 years as music director of the Trier University. He's been music director of of Orchestra 91 in Hamburg. He's one of the principal guest conductors of the National Symphony of Argentina. And since 2022, he's the university music director for the city of Bremen. And then the list of other orchestras that he's conducted is as long as your arm. So if you like now music, this is an exciting one, because as classic as it gets is Bernstein. And then you're on to John Adams, and then you're on to Silva. So it's boop, 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 and then complete now. Okay. Next up is going to be an opera, but I'm going to skip past the opera and come back to it at the end of this talk. So we'll move ahead to the non-opera things, but we've got opera coming up on Saturday from Vienna. And if you love opera, you just don't want to miss it. I'm telling you. Meantime, let me tell you about the other orchestral works we have here, so that I know what I'm left dealing with in terms of time when I get to the opera. But I am going to uncharacteristically give you the whole spiel on this opera this time, because we have time this week. Okay, so next. Saturday, September 27th, opera and orchestra conductor and author Ingo Metzmacher leads the Cologne Phil through the realm between dreams and reality, with Helen Grimes' Near Midnight and Mahler's 7th Symphony. That'll be at 8 in the evening European time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast, your Saturday afternoon. 11 o'clock your late Saturday morning on the West Coast. It's live streamed by ARD Classic. And they are exploring in music the shadowy realm between dream and reality. Does that sound familiar to you? It's not, it sort of sounds like what the Tapiola Sinfonietta is experimenting with in their concert on Thursday. Anyway, they'll be doing Grimes' Near Midnight and then the Mahler Symphony. The Mahler Symphony, which premiered in 1908. You know, when it comes to Mahler, the people who love Mahler, they love it. So if that's what you love, you're going to love it. And those who don't, well, the Helen Grime, I think, is a very interesting piece. Metzmacher is a specialist in 20th and 21st century music that explains the piece by Helen Grime. He was for back in the early 2000s, music director of the Hamburg State Opera House. Then he was the chief conductor at the Dutch National Opera. Then for a while, he was chief conductor of the Deutsche Symphonie Orchestra in Berlin. And for the last 9 years, he was the artistic director of the Kunstfestspiele Herrenhausen. And he's got 2 books out. I won't give you the German titles, but they're called, one is called Don't Be Afraid of New Sounds, and the other is called Curtain Up, Discovering and Experiencing Opera. Helen Grime, whom you see there in her photo there, I worked hard. I looked for a photo of her smiling. I only found one online, and it didn't look like she meant it at all. She has very sort of 19th century melancholic looks in many of her photos. We'll give you the link to her website, and you'll see there's a black and white photo of her on her website, which is even more melancholy than what you see in that picture. But as someone who is mildly depressed on a fairly often basis, I totally understand. Although you wouldn't know it from this, from the way I talk here. Anyway, she's relatively young, in her 40s. For a composer. She born in 1981, started winning awards in her early 20s, I guess, in the early 2000s. Her works have been played by the LSO London Symphony Orchestra. This particular piece was commissioned by the Halle Orchestra, but she's been played by Boston, the Paris, the Orchestre de Paris, the Concertgebouw, the Swedish Radio Symphony Orchestra. She was appointed composer in residence at Wigmore in 2016, and I don't know if she still is, but she is now a professor of composition at the Royal Academy of Music in London. Now, here's what she says about this piece. As its title suggests, the piece has an introspective, nocturnal quality. The solitary, sometimes melancholy hours as one day moves into the next can be a time of reflection and unrest. When first sketching ideas for the piece, I came across a poem by D.H. Lawrence called Weeknight Service. Its melancholic undertones, images of tolling bells, high-spun moon, and the indifference of night immediately struck a chord with me. And you'll hear that in the piece. Let me read to you some passages from this poem by Weeknight Service by D.H. Lawrence. The 5 old bells are hurrying and eagerly calling, imploring, protesting. They know, but clamorously falling into gabbling incoherence, never resting, like spattering showers from a bursted skyrocket, dropping in splashes of sound, endlessly, never stopping. The silver moon that somebody has spun so high to settle the question, yes or no, has caught in the net of the night's balloon and sits with a smooth, bland smile up there in the sky, smiling at naught. The wise old trees drop their leaves with a faint, sharp hiss of contempt, while a car at the end of the street goes by with a laugh, as by degrees the poor bells cease, and the night is exempt, and the stars can chaff, the ironic moon at their ease, while the dim old church is peopled with shadows and sounds and ghosts that lurch in its cenotaph. Helen Grime wrote music to go with that, or inspired by that. Enjoy. Then there's another concert also on Saturday coming from Sao Paulo, down under, where it's still, the middle of their winter season, or the continuing portion of their winter season. And this is with in-house conductor Terry Fisher. Saturday, September 27th, Thierry Fisher and the Sao Paulo Symphony host Spanish pianist Javier Perianes in Grieg's piano concerto, and play an overture by a Brazilian operatic composer you may not know, and Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, which you may well know. That's at, I think, this is one of the uncertain ones, because they're playing this concert 3 times, but I think this will be live streamed Saturday at 4:30 in the afternoon Brazilian time, 5:30 on the East Coast in the US, 2:30 on the West Coast, and 11:30 at night here in Europe. But double check that when we do our weekend highlights, or a separate piece on this, because I'll need to confirm that time. They'll be doing the overture to Fosco by Carlos Gomes. He was he was the first big composer from the Americas to be accepted as a real operatic composer. And this Fosco was his second big opera success in Europe. He was a contemporary of Puccini and Verdi, a little older than Puccini and younger than Verdi, I think. Then they'll do Grieg's piano concerto in A minor, which incidentally, Grieg was inspired to write this, or had in mind when he wrote this, Schumann's piano concerto, because he heard Clara Schumann playing it in Leipzig when he was a teenager. So if you know Schumann's piano concerto, or if you don't know it, you might want to look it up before listening to this concert. And then they'll do the Symphonie Fantastique, the unusual 5-part symphony by Berlioz, which is also called An Episode in the Life of an Artist, and it was one of the first attempts to use the symphonic format to do programmatic music, that is, to tell a story about a day in the life of an artist. Thierry Fisher, he's the top conductor. There's a good guy. Javier Perianes, well, this season he'll be playing in San Francisco, San Diego, Dallas, and Baltimore with the symphonies there. He'll be at Teatro Real. He'll be with the Monte Carlo Philharmonic and the Sydney and Tasmanian Symphony Orchestras. Top guy. Good concert. You have some real choices to make. And then there's one more symphonic concert to tell you about before I can then get to tell you about the opera, which is a fantastic opera. If you're watching and waiting for me to get to it, it's absolutely worth the wait, I promise you. And I would not miss it if I were you, if you're an opera lover. And if you're not an opera lover, boy, this what a great occasion, free of charge, to discover how great opera is. And take the advice of that composer that I was just telling you about, who wrote a whole book. Metzmacher wrote a whole book about discovering opera. You could get Metzmacher's book about discovering opera and read it, and then discover this. Anyway, Sunday, September 28th, Macedonian-American conductor Vanya Nikolovsky leads the Scottsdale Philharmonic in a rousing program of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, Grieg's Peer Gynt Suites 1 and 2, an aria from Puccini's La Bohème, and the overture to Wagner's Tannhäuser. Talk about rousing. Yeah, and they live stream all their concerts. And I think they're interesting because of this conductor, Vanya Nikolovsky. He was originally from Macedonia, and got all of his training as a conductor and everything back in the 90s, and then was totally out of it. And then during the teens, in the last decade, came back to the scene, got himself a PhD in conducting from Arizona State in 2018, and he's back conducting at a much later stage in life. I think he might have been teaching piano or something like that in the interim years, but he wasn't conducting. So it's, more power to him. Hats off for the accomplishment. And check him out. And then now I can finally tell you about TOSCA, which I'm very happy to do. And I figured out a way to tell you about it, which interweaves the story and the cast. How about that? Okay. Let me scroll back to the, I hope you liked the poem that I read. Wasn't my best reading, but let's get back to an introduction to this. Opera lovers, Saturday, September 27th, Vienna State Opera live streams Puccini's Tosca with an international cast of Elena Stechina in the title role, top tenor Jonathan Tatelman, and baritones the veteran Ludovic Tezier, and the rising star Yusung Park, free of charge. Of course, this is yet another operatic story of love that ends very badly, but what can you do? That'll be at 7 o'clock in the evening, European time. You're 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. Perfect time for a Saturday matinee of opera. 10 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. We give you the link to the website. It's a free live stream, but you do have to register on the website with your email address so they know you exist. Okay, for those who do not know the story of Tosca, I'm going to give it to you while then I'm telling you about who these main singers are going to be, what characters they play. How about that? Okay, it starts out that there's a former consul, okay, and his name is Angelotti, and he has escaped from captivity, and he's looking to hide himself in a church that he comes to, where he meets a painter. Okay, now who is Angelotti? Because he's the one who starts all the trouble in this. All right. Now, Angelotti is played by Cesare Angelotti, is played by Yusung Gabriel Park. And he's the guy there on the far right. He's the young guy. And he's South Korean. He's been a member of the opera studio at the for up and coming singers at the Vienna State Opera in 2022 and 2023, and then 2023 and 2024. So he's just stepping out, He's won some prizes, not first prizes, but second or third prizes in various European and Korean competitions, as one must do if one wants to rise up in the opera world and make their way. He's done well enough that they're giving him this role in this opera alongside some very distinguished top people that I'm going to be telling you about in a moment. Okay, so that's Yusung Gabriel Park. He plays Cesare Angelotti, the guy who starts off the whole mess. And remember this, opera was created in an effort to recreate the ancient classical Greek tragedy. Well, you know how Greek tragedies end. They don't end well. Okay, so now the painter that Angelotti runs into is Mario Cavaradossi. And he is played by a top tenor whose picture you have there, Jonathan Tatelman. For those of you who really know a lot about opera, you don't even need me to tell you about it, but I'll tell you a little bit. The roles he's playing this year include he'll be playing the title role in Faust at the Bavarian State Opera. He'll be in Il Trittico at Carnegie Hall. He'll be in the title role in Werther at the Zurich Opera House. He'll also be in Essen, Venice, Fort Worth Opera, Munich, Hamburg, Dortmund, and Florida opera houses, among others. And he's performed on all the top stages, Covent Garden, New York Met, etc. Okay? And does a fair amount of concert singing too with some of the top orchestras. So you got a top guy playing this role. He also has 2 solo albums out for Deutsche Grammophon, Arias and the Great Puccini. He's new to the Vienna State Opera. He first appeared with them as Turidu in Cavalleria Rusticana in January of this year. So, but he is absolutely not new to the ranks of opera singers. So you got a good guy in the role of Cavaradossi, which is critical. Now, the chief of police who is after Angelotti, manages to track down Cavaradossi, and now Cavaradossi is in trouble with the chief of police, whose name is Baron Scarpia. In the role of Baron Scarpia, you've got Ludovic Tézier. Tézier has been singing with the Vienna State Opera since 2005, not since 2025, but for a generation. And he's a regular at the New York Met, at the Paris National Opera, the Deutsche Oper Berlin, La Scala, Teatro Real in Madrid, Covent Garden, the festivals, Salzburg, Lindeburn. He's the tops. Title roles like Hamlet, Eugene Onegin, Don Giovanni, Rigoletto, Simon Boccanegra, etc. And even the baritone version of Werther, which there is. So these are the sort of if you're not familiar with opera, you might think in terms of Les Miserables, a Javert type figure who's out, except he's corrupt because Cavaradossi has a lover, a beloved, and that is that's Tosca. And the only way to save Cavaradossi is if Scarpia can get his hands on Tosca. And Tosca is played by Elena Stikina. She's Russian originally, but has branched out well beyond performing in Russia, has performed at the Met, at La Scala, at Opéra National de Paris, the Salzburg Festival, Covent Garden, etc. This year, she'll be singing Tosca also at the Dutch National Opera in Amsterdam and at the Paris Opera. And also in Amsterdam, she'll be singing the title role in Tchaikovsky's Maid of Orleans. She'll be Salome at the Lyric Opera in Chicago, Cho-Cho San and Madame Butterfly at the Deutsche Oper Berlin and the New York Met. I mean, what more do you want? I'm not going to tell you where she studied things like that. This is a top international opera singing cast, and you get to see it free of charge. Hallelujah. Chapeau, hats off to the Vienna State Opera. And this is not the last of the live streams they'll be doing this year. It's just terrific. We discovered them last spring, and there's going to be more and more of this. And so look for more as the year goes on. That's what we have for you this week in terms of operatic and orchestral live streaming. I hope it pleases you. I hope that any of these live streams inspires you, uplifts you, or just shows you a heck of a good time. I think the now music with Igor Silva is going to be a wild time if you're up for that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for inspiration, I mean, look at this Tosca. It'll be great. All right, ciao for now. I'll be back tomorrow with the weekly roundup of organ recitals and chamber music. Thanks for tuning in.